Gross. Disgusting. Sleazy. Lurid. Inspirational. Yes, inspirational. Grindhouse cinema is all of this and so much more. What exactly is Grindhouse cinema? Well, dear viewer, Grindhouse cinema originally was a term to describe the movies that would play in Grindhouse theaters. Grindhouse theaters, particularly in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, were often your cheaper theaters, less reputable theaters, often in probably a little seamier side of whatever town and city that you may have been living in.
You rotten son of a bitch!
Often, a lot of these Grindhouse theaters would play, instead of the polished Hollywood, super mainstream, big budget films, often would play films that were probably a little on the cheaper side as far as how they were made and production budgets. But with that, opening up a whole swath of great, exciting, unusual cinema. And very diverse cinema, because we're talking everything from action and martial arts films to horror cinema to sexploitation, exploitation, roughies. You want to go back a little further, like nudist colony movies, later on adult movies. Just basically, for me, a buffet of everything that's fun in filmmaking. That was all within Grindhouses. And the thing about like getting to explore this kind of cinema is you get a lot of myths quickly dispelled when you explore Grindhouse cinema. And especially when you realize that Grindhouse is really an umbrella term. For me, Grindhouse is basically another term and another way to say like outre cinema. Anything that's outside the little sort of box of what's considered respectable. These are the films that you probably won't watch with your family unless your family is like really cool. Really cool. These are not the films that you're probably going to talk about, at your day job, at your workplace. Again, unless your workplace is really cool. Really cool. Especially because they are so maligned and misunderstood, even now. And in fact, as somebody who's been a fan of horror movies and cult cinema, psychotronic cinema, however you want to call it, somebody who's been like this, I feel like practically since I was hatched out of whatever weird cosmic egg that brought me here. I've experienced a lot of misunderstandings. Like with the horror and monster side of things, a lot of times, as that kind of fan, you get people that think that you're, like, oh, you're into that stuff and act like, you have the potential of being like some kind of serial killing werewolf. As amazing as that sounds, obviously this is not true. In fact, I find more often most people that kind of are into really out there art and particularly kind of dark art tend to be some of the most like gentle people. I'm not talking, Twitter doesn't count, but if you repress something that's very true about your own nature and about your own like existence, because let's face it, we live in a world that has a lot of very strong duality in it. That's a part of it. There's a very beautiful side to humanity and there's a very dark, ugly side. We live in a violent world. So having art that reflects that is honest. It's the cliche, but the whole adage of art is a mirror is very true. But a lot of times I think people misunderstand that. For example, when I was in high school, I was taking a psychology class and the teacher overheard me very excitedly telling another student about Herschel Gordon Lewis's The Wizard of Gore, where I have not changed in a lot of ways apparently. But and she was horrified. She actually was like, Heather, I can't believe you are into those disgusting movies. Like, you're so nice. And it's like, I didn't know what to say, because it's like, what, like me being into horror movies means I'm gonna, become a become a Montag the Magician. I'm going to be able to apparently get the supernatural powers of whatever grand grignal magic I do on stage will have real life effects later on. Also, like, I'm the most pacifistic person ever. I abhor violence in real life. I don't even like getting into true crime. Like, that stuff creeps me out. I already have too much like crazy shit in my head. I don't need extra information about how terrible humanity is. I'm well aware, very well aware. With sexploitation and exploitation being into stuff like that, of course, like, you're going to have to deal with sometimes people saying, well, isn't that misogynistic? Isn't that sexist? And again, no. With these films, like, for me, especially growing up, it was like, I actually was like, wow, okay, genres that have like strong female characters. Like, some of the women in cult cinema, there's so many like strong female characters in cult cinema. One that immediately comes to my mind is Tura Satana from Russ Meyer's Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. Tura is a complete badass. Like, strong, beautiful, buxotic, deadly, breaking dudes' arms, you know, just, she's so fierce, so ferocious. And actually, I'm a huge Russ Meyer fan. I love Russ. If I keep doing this series, I will inevitably do something on Russ Meyer because he is one of my favorite auteurs. But I always find it funny because, yes, I mean, of course, Russ is famous for his penchants for loving the huge boobs. and he did. But if you watch his films, like, you kind of quickly realize the biggest boobs in the Russ Meyer universe is usually the guys. Like, the men are usually kind of like the dumb, brutish, violent, kind of oafy, you know, guys. The women are these Amazons. The women are the smart ones. And even better is, and not just in Russ's film, but I think in a lot of these films, the women have sexual agency. Yeah, they're not always victims. And half the time, even when they are victims, they get revenge. These aren't wallflowers. The exploitation world has so many, like, women that are just, that if they're not strong at the beginning, they're strong by the end. And I think that's so cool. I think there's so much inspiration. And not just for women, for anybody in some of these films. Cult cinema in general, outre cinema in general, is misfit cinema. So to me, that means misfits. And you know what, if you're watching this, you're part of us. You're the tribe. We are the tribe. We're not a gang, we're not a clan, not a group, because let's face it, whenever people get organized with groups, something stupid's gonna happen. Instead, we're a tribe, man. If you're a misfit, if you're somebody who's never quite fit in, if you were not by any means the most popular kid in school, not the most popular person at your workplace, that's okay. We're all misfits. You know what? That's groovy, because it's like, hey, you're an individual. These films are individuals. And that's, you know, one of the many, many joys of this world. The other kind of cool thing to me about getting into outre cinema and grindhouse cinema is that you quickly realize that a lot of these films this is art. I mean, is there some great, just sleazy, fun, like, trash-tastic cinema in there? Of course, and I love that too. And trash can be art too, why not, you know? You realize that there are films, and sometimes these are films that got kind of probably misadvertised too, but they had a lower budget, so that's how, like, the producers or the studios or whoever was basically the money people in this situation, they needed to make their money back, or they wanted to make a bigger income back. So a lot of times you would see films that were realistically art house. To me, Ganja and Hess is a perfect example of this. Ganja and Hess is a art house film, and it's brilliant. It's beautiful. It's completely unforgettable. I cannot recommend it enough if you haven't seen it. It certainly wasn't promoted as art house, because art house doesn't sell. But a lot of times, if you kind of tart something up a little bit, make it seem a little more on the sex and violence end of things, I mean, then you're gonna, you know, the odds and the chances of getting your money back grow exponentially. But even, like, crass advertising aside, the thing too is that I find that films that were considered to be targeted towards working class people, and played in working class environments, aka, you know, cheaper venues, ones that were not, like, on a nicer end of town, those are automatically, just by playing in those theaters and by having a lower budget, tended to be automatically just sort of viewed as trash or unworthy of proper, like, critical love and reflection and introspection. And it's classist. I love a good, like, I love Criterion, I love all that stuff, but I do think there's a problem when it's like, okay, something's European and it's glossy and it plays to a higher end crowd with people that can afford higher education, and so therefore those are respectable, but the ones that, you know, are more in the budget and more of the demographic to somebody who graduated high school but probably couldn't finish college, maybe they didn't go to college, maybe they didn't finish high school, that's automatically considered like lower end. It's classism, basically. And I say that's a bunch of baloney. You know, boundaries are meant to be broken. One's intelligence and vision and talent as an artist, as well as somebody who is taking in that art, is not determined by a degree or by how much money's in their bank. Because God knows there's plenty of dumbasses with a lot of money. And that's true. And there's plenty of dumbasses with no money, too. I mean, it's you know, such is life. So if you're somebody who's tired of the same old thing on streaming or, you know, whatever venue, whatever platform you're pursuing, you're wanting something new, you're wanting something different than the typical sort of bloated Hollywood films that, I mean, let's face it, some of the budgets on those films, you could literally feed third world countries and rehabilitate some economies. You could do some good in this country too. We have plenty of people that need it. But your heart yearns for something different. But maybe you've been a little put off because of X, Y, or Z reasons that have been mentioned. Welcome to the fold. If you're converted, great. You're like, hell yeah, that girl's got a Night Dreams poster and Bela Lugosi behind her. Hell yeah, I do. But if you're somebody who doesn't, you're curious but you're not converted, please pursue. I'll have a list of some of the clips I have in this at the end of the credits. That's a good little primer there too.
The Wizard of Gore.
You can find me on my website, mondoheather.com, and go to my link tree. I'll put the address here, linktree.com/mondoheather. I'm more than happy to be a guide to the river Styx of weird culture here. Until next time, be gentle to yourselves, much love, and to quote the ghoul, stay sick, turn blue, scratch glass, climb walls, but most importantly of all, don't get caught.